All right,
And action.
And action. Welcome to Santino's World. Holy crap, it has been a long, long time since we've done a podcast.
At least a couple of months, right?
Yeah, I'm here with Kamuela Santino DeFranco in Santino's World. It has been, I think we did one during COVID, maybe two during COVID.
Yeah.
And then we talked about this before. We were busier than shit.
Yeah, before I was way less busy before the shutdown than I was during the shutdown when everything stopped, and I thought it would be the opposite of that. But no, when everything stopped, that's when I had like no free time to myself, and I was doing a bunch of, took on a bunch of different projects, and it's been crazy. But things have kind of winded down a little bit, wound down a little bit. But it's been, I think the last time we did a podcast was towards the beginning of the shutdown, like maybe a couple weeks into it, so it has been a while. And
we were talking about back then how we were busy, and then clearly we were that busy to have never done another podcast because it just kept running, and it's funny, even though we didn't have a lot of fighters fighting, the ones that were fighting just back to back in the UFC.
I know you were out of town a lot.
That was it. I mean, the UFC was the only ones doing fights, so it wasn't even like we had guys competing, but they were fighting in town. It was all out of town stuff. And that was exhausting. I'm still exhausted.
I remember there was a time I think you were gone like 3 weeks out of the month. Like 3 out of the 4 weekends you were gone.
Yep. I was in Jacksonville a couple times. I think 2 weeks in a row because we had Hunter and Courtney fighting the same, I guess, back-to-back weeks. And then up in Vegas. And then I was gone. Oh, yeah. And then I was gone with you in South Dakota. And then I think it was Vegas, South Dakota, Vegas, or something random. I'm just glad we're back. Gyms are kind of open.
Yeah, things are kind of returning allegedly back to semi-normal.
Yeah, I think COVID is still here, but I think people are the new normal, as people say. It bothers the shit out of me, but it kind of is. Everything's kind of, I don't know if COVID is winding down. I think the cases are down, but I think people are just a little bit more
just getting used to things.
Yeah, they're understanding that COVID's a thing, just like AIDS, and you can't be unprotected. Right. So you got to wear a mask.
Yeah, it's. I think people are at the point now where the quote unquote the new normal is better than nothing.
Yes.
Which is, we experienced nothing for 3 months or however long, where everything was shut down, and I think people are like, okay, I would rather wear the mask and I would rather be limited to what I can do, because there's still certain things like movie theaters which haven't opened back up.
Well, have they opened up? I think they are. I think they actually opened up.
Did they?
Yeah, I think here in Arizona, I think it's 25% capacity or 50% capacity, something like. I think they're actually back open.
Okay, cool.
I think gyms are one of the last things to actually open, and technically gyms can open if they apply for reopening and go through these different stages and
follow
steps.
The guidelines, the social distancing, all that kind of stuff.
Not sure about MMA gyms
I don't know
here, but
MMA gyms fall into that category.
Yeah,
but
I don't know, but we're open, we're back, we're doing stuff. Hopefully, I mean, yeah, we'll get talking to this here in a little bit. I'm gone in Abu Dhabi. I leave on Wednesday for 2.5 weeks. I think it's actually 18 days. Wow. So F my life.
Are you excited about that, or are you kind of dreading that trip?
Yes. Like
both.
I think it'll be a super cool experience. I want to go over there. I want to see it. I want to see Abu Dhabi, even though we're stuck in the bubble. Mm-hmm. Even the flight over there, it's supposed to be 16 to 17 hours direct. So
wow.
Yeah, normally there's not a direct flight from Vegas to Abu Dhabi, but the UFC has actually chartered a plane from.
That's cool.
Yes, directly from Las Vegas over. And I just got my itinerary. So I fly out Wednesday the 30th. We go to Vegas and we've got a COVID test. Okay. And then from there, we're quarantined until 6 a.m. on Friday, where we go to Vegas, Vegas to the airport. Our flight leaves at 6, so I'm assuming we got to be there at 4:30 or whatever it is, But then the terminal is only open there's no other flights leaving this terminal at the time. So it's only the UFC. We'll kind of go through whatever there is, whatever process that entails there. And then we're on a flight. Again, because it's chartered, I believe what I've been hearing is that the fighters and corners get the first dibs on the first class pods.
No way.
Yeah, so we should be able to sleep, lay out.
Yeah, a comfortable trip.
Exactly.
Long but comfortable.
Then I believe the UFC staff gets business class, and then kind of the overflow is the rest of the cabin where people have of course all 3 chairs,
right.
3-4 chairs in a row. So it shouldn't be horrible, but 16 and a half hours, 16 and a half hours.
Yeah, it's still a
It
long
doesn't
time.
matter what you're doing for 16 and a half hours. I couldn't sleep for 16 and a half hours. I mean, think about
Right,
it. That's twice
right.
the amount of time that you would sleep in a night for most people.
If you're getting good sleep.
Exactly.
You know, if you're
I mean,
sleeping 8 hours.
Oh my gosh, like
And who does that?
I can watch a movie, go to sleep for a full night, wake up, watch a movie, and then go back to sleep for most of a full night. Like, I mean, this is a lot.
And then you'd be looking at 14 hours.
And then
You still have
exactly.
two
And then I
hours
still
left
have
in the
2
flight.
hours to figure out to eat or something.
Yeah.
So then we get over to Abu Dhabi. We've got to take a COVID test as soon as we get there, and then I believe we take another one like the following day. Like I think we take 2 in a row.
Really?
Yeah.
So you have to take a total of 3. You got to take one when you get to Vegas, and then you have to get
more Mas, because I already took one at home. I had to do a Zoom COVID test and shove it up my own nose. So I did a COVID test a couple days ago. Then I do a COVID test when I get to Vegas. Then I do a COVID test when we get to Abu Dhabi. Then the following day. And
That's crazy.
And that's just for Tracy's fight. Because I'm there for 2 weeks, because I'm staying for Korean Zombies fight, I don't know if I've got to retest or re-quarantine or what, how that will go. But then I'm there for, you know, I mean, again, another whole week with Zombie, doing whatever you do during a bubble in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah. That's
So-
your nose is going to get angry, man.
My nose. Have you seen my nose? If you guys see my nose, I mean, this thing is
It's already
already
angry.
This thing is crooked as a crescent moon. It's been beat up a lot, and now you're going to keep prodding me with those things.
Yeah, I remember. So I got tested, and so this is crazy. So I was experiencing some symptoms like a month or so ago. And so I went and I got tested, and I had to do it myself. So I've been tested
that's right.
3 times. Once before my fight in South Dakota for LFA, once at the fight, you know, before the fight, like the day or two before, and then once I started experiencing symptoms about a month or so ago. The first 2, they did it to me, and it was pretty fast and easy. The third time, it is the most bizarre, unnatural feeling.
So weird.
Shoving that up your nose, and they say basically you got to shove that thing all the way back until you can't anymore.
And then go a little further.
And then go a little further. So I remember when I first put it in my nose, I hit a wall, and I thought, man, there's no way. It was pretty fast. I was like, there's no way this thing is as far back as it goes. And then I kept pushing, and I pushed through that first wall all the way up until I felt like the back of my skull. And then I'm like, oh yeah, like you hit a solid wall, and you just, oh, that's it. Like I cannot go any further. And then you got to spin it and twist it, and
yes,
it's pretty miserable.
And it's a feeling not like anything when it goes up your nose, it feels like something's in your nose.
Yeah.
All right, but then when you push it all the way back, it's at the back of your sinus cavity. So it's not. It kind of looks like it's going up into your brain, but it's actually going back toward your ear or toward your spine.
Yes.
And it feels. It's almost like if, like you get water in your throat and in your sinuses. But a solid, not a liquid form.
It's a little difficult to explain. Because unless you've had something that far up your nose, man, you just wouldn't know what that feels
weird.
like. But yeah, it's uncomfortable. So I can't imagine doing it like 3-4 times within a few days.
I don't know. I've got to be at 20 or 30 COVID tests at this point.
Yeah, probably with all the fighters that you've cornered.
You know, doing between the UFC. And I've had antibody tests, I've had every test, and they all come up negative. I'm trying to get something positive because right now I think I might be dead if nothing is showing up this many tests. Like at this point, I should have had a false positive.
No, you're a superhero.
I'm pretty much, yeah. I'm. Gosh, what's the guys? Have you been watching The Boys on Netflix?
Oh, caught up, man.
Yeah.
We just watched the most recent episode last night.
Yeah, my superpower is I can't get COVID.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy because you have been around everybody who's had COVID. And, we've known quite a few people who've gotten it, who've tested positive, and you just continue to just keep on going, man. You're trucking forward.
Keep on keeping on.
You keep on keeping on. It's bizarre, man. It's crazy.
It's strange.
But the T cells, maybe you just have those
T cells. Like I said, I really want to get exposed to a lot of different things and see if I am just immune to them all. I will probably just immediately die.
At this point, it's a quest.
Yeah,
you just want to see what you can survive.
What I can and can't get exposed to without dying. Yeah, it turns out they're like, that nuclear radiation is not a
You're going to Chernobyl?
It's not a virus. Yeah, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, darn.
And then you test positive for COVID.
Yeah. It would take an act of radiation to change me into I get mutated. My mutation power
and it kills your T cells.
Yeah.
That's the power.
Then I get everything. yeah, so that'll be my next couple weeks. I'm going to try and actually podcast with you while we're out there.
Yeah.
To
Hopefully
keep
we
up
can
with
make that
stuff
happen.
because that'll be a lot of fun. I want to kind of update people as I'm over there, like what Abu Dhabi is like in our little bubble, and kind of report it as we go, even if they're short, almost like vlog-ish type podcasts. And those will be videoed as well. We're going to go on Zoom. We're going to do those. So at least there'll be a little bit of video interaction. So that should be a lot of fun. But we've got something to talk about. What is it? Do you know what I'm thinking?
Something to talk about. Are you talking about the fights that just took place? You talking about Israel
Maybe. I
Adesanya?
don't. There's only one thing I think on the planet, of all the fights coming up, of all things past, of everything that we could talk about to talk about. There's one thing and one thing only.
It's got to be Israel Adesanya's
What
performance.
specifically?
His leg kicks?
His performance? Not exactly.
Oh, those.
Nope. That. Singular.
Yeah, you're talking about
I'm talking about that udder on the right side that should have been milked mid-fight.
On the right side. I thought both, man. Okay, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about his chest.
His chest.
We're talking about his chest.
But no, it was significant on one side of his chest. The left side of his chest looked somewhat normal. The right side, oh my gosh, like that thing was a was a cow's udder.
Yeah, I was tripping out when I saw. Actually, my dad pointed it out. I didn't notice it at first, and I was watching the fights with my dad. And my dad was like, "Dude, what's up with Izzy's chest?"
I'm not kidding when I say this. There's a bunch of us over. Tracy and some of the girls came over who are here in town, and we were watching the fights with my family. I'm a stalker, so I notice all the weird stuff. I mean, within.
Well, that's why I didn't know when you said there's one thing we got to talk about.
Yeah,
what
there's
are we
only one thing.
For you, that could have literally been, I would have been like, Israel Adesanya. You're like, no, we're going to talk about the new Canon R5.
Yeah, it could have been anything.
But I was like, man.
But I'm not kidding you. He goes up there, he takes his shirt off, and he didn't even have his shirt over his head before I was pointing, like, what the? Gyno. Not what is that? Pointing gyno. I mean, maybe it's not, all right? So, but we got to talk about this. I don't know. All right, so I don't want to call somebody out for doing steroids, okay? I mean, This is a public figure. I'm kind of a public figure in the sense of like
people
the
know who
industry.
You are in the sport.
Yeah, like I'm a coach in the industry, so I don't want to call out another fighter as if I know that this guy was doing steroids.
Right.
But I don't know anything else in the gamut of gamuts of what causes gyno in a man. So I can't. And if it looks like an udder and acts like an udder and walks like an udder and a baby can breastfeed off of it, chances are it's gyno.
Yeah, so I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on here and think that maybe what was happening was he stopped maybe he didn't take the estrogen blockers and was just taking steroids, but didn't take...
Well, that's 100% the gyno. Gyno is going to come from estrogen blockers being in, because when you take, for those of you who don't know, you take steroids basically testosterone-ish. You know what I mean? There's a lot of different steroids, but for the most part, steroids are elevating your testosterone. The byproduct of that is when you have too much, it converts to estrogen.
Yes.
So you need estrogen blockers, so the steroids or testosterone or whatever you're doing doesn't convert. And I'm not a scientist on this.
I'm not an expert either. That's
the general-ish.
Yes.
But, I mean, before we get to... this is how he screwed up. I mean, do we think that was gyno? And if so, what the hell do we do?
Right. If I was Paulo or in his camp, I would definitely be asking some serious questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, from what I heard, again, I'm not an expert either, but from what I heard, that when a lot of people test positive, they actually, what shows up in their system is the estrogen blocker. It's not even the steroid, so it would make sense that in some cases anyways.
Yeah.
So it would make sense where if he was trying to hide something or cycle off the steroids and not take the estrogen blocker because that is more likely to show up in a test, then it would be easier for him to get away with that if he cycled off correctly without taking the estrogen blocker, but would result in the bitch tits.
Okay.
Again, I'm not an expert. That's just what I heard. But it does make sense. He's fighting the most bodied up dude in our sport, and if you just look at them size wise, it's like, yeah, if they clinch up, Paulo's going to have a huge strength advantage. So maybe he's trying to put on some muscle.
This is funny because Paulo has never tested positive for steroids. He has been suspended by USADA for receiving an IV, which he was suspended, I believe, 6 months for. But that was maybe the IV was just for rehydration.
Right.
You don't know, but no. And the reason for that is one of the masking agents that they use is IV based things, and so
to dilute the PEDs or whatever it is.
I don't even
like
know
that.
what I believe is actually what shows up in the. So they actually, what shows up when you is the plastic. There's a plastic residue that shows up in your blood.
Okay.
And that's what they can test for. So they can tell if you got an IV, not because of IV itself, but because of the plastic liner on the IV, which is really strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they say that they use IVs for masking agents, and I don't understand if that's the actual like plastic itself that shows up that masks, or if it's something in the IV that does it. But that's how they test for the IV. So Paulo, a few years ago, was suspended for using an IV. No steroids were found in his system, but that was the thing. But then Adesanya now it was a big thing of them going back and forth talking about the steroid head. Are we testing this guy?
Right.
And then now we look at Adesanya and we see his gyno and we're going,
maybe
pot calling the kettle black over here.
Exactly, and maybe he was trying to get some of the heat off of him by saying, "Hey, are we testing this dude? Are we testing this dude?" He's like the controlling boyfriend who's always checking in with his girl to see what she's doing.
See if she's cheating.
Because it's his guilty conscience, because he
Exactly.
knows what he's doing when she's not around. So he thinks, hey, what's she doing? So I don't know if that's the case. I don't know what else it could be, man.
I don't know.
But that was so obvious and so apparent. And I'm like, man, has his chest always looked like that? Like when I first saw that, I was like, have I just not noticed? Like,
no, I don't think it has.
Or is it just for this fight he shows up with the bitch tits? And
people were putting side-by-side pictures, and this is new. But USADA has not been testing people regularly throughout all this COVID stuff. There's some people that I know were tested like right at the beginning of this and haven't been tested since.
Interesting.
And these are UFC contracted fighters. So, I mean, if there's a time to cheat, now
would be the time.
Yeah, well, I don't even know now. Now I think they're starting to test again kind of regularly. But that March to August time was the time to do it if you're going to do it.
I'm curious how often Paulo was tested for this camp. And if
they said there was actually a log. There was something because he posted something like trolling Adesanya and said, hey, just so you know, I haven't been tested a single time through this, joking. And then somebody posted like the actual USADA logs, and it was like 17 times he'd been tested since then, or 12. Like he's actually been tested quite a bit throughout all of this.
I figured so, but I wonder if Izzy's been tested anywhere near as
Probably
often
not.
as Paulo has.
Probably not. And then, so I'm really curious to see how all that plays out. If he does pop, like what happens.
Yeah.
And really, if he just goes to get the surgery to get that removed, because wouldn't you want that removed?
Yes.
Unless he's
100%.
transitioning, and then it's kind of a godsend, and he's already halfway there. I mean, otherwise you're kind of like,
He's going to take over the women's division as well.
Yeah, let me get this out of here, and then go back to looking normal. But besides the gyno, what about the performance? What did you think about the fight?
I thought it was flawless. With that said, though, I don't know. I don't know one way or the other. And I heard Paulo say something about, no excuses, but next time I fight you, I'll be 100%. But something looked off, and I don't know if I'm not trying to take anything away from Izzy's performance. In my opinion, it was the best performance that I've ever seen from him.
Yeah,
he fought a perfect fight. I think the only time he got hit was with like 2 leg kicks and a body kick that Paulo threw. So it was a great performance. He stayed on the outside. He moved well. He picked his shots with the legs, and then he ended up finding that check left hook to put him away in the second. It was outstanding. Was Paulo worried about his conditioning, and so he was holding back because he didn't want to get tired in the later rounds? Was he hurt, and so he wasn't pulling the trigger at all in the early on in the fight? I don't know what happened, but that's not the Paulo that we're used to seeing, and it could be because he was fighting a 5-round fight, or it could be because Israel was just so sharp that night.
Yeah, so I heard through inside sources ahead of time that he had hurt his hand.
Okay.
And this is when he was traveling to Abu Dhabi. So it was, somewhat recent. The severity of it and which hand, I don't know. And it's easy to sit on the sidelines and go, he just looked horrible. He didn't train right. He this, he that, he this, he that. But I don't know what... We've all had bad performances, and we've seen people with bad performances, and we've seen people not show up, whether it's a mental thing, whether it's a time thing. I mean, it's a 12-hour difference. And I mean, you get it. Israel's going to have to adapt to the same time. Everybody's going to have to adapt to the same time difference. Everybody gets that. But maybe some person was able to adapt versus somebody wasn't able to adapt to the time change and stuff. Maybe the lights got him. Even though there's no crowd, the magnitude of the situation. I mean, maybe Izzy just fought the most perfect fight ever. But, I mean, so Izzy looked great. He looked like he had a great performance. He picked him apart. We'll get to the technical side of it in a second. But on top of that, Paulo didn't look like he was there to fight at all.
No, he was kind of a punching bag, man.
Yeah, he couldn't get going. He didn't know what to do. He wasn't rushing him and trying to get his hand. It was just kind of like he was kind of lost.
Right.
And we've seen that happen before. Adrenaline gets people or nerves get people. Or was he waiting to get to the later rounds because he was worried about it and then just couldn't get going because of that? Or was his hand hurt? We don't know. We don't know those things. Well, what I see from looking at it is Paulo did not look like the standard Paulo that we're used to seeing, and Israel looked phenomenal.
Yeah.
Except for the one side of his chest. But on a technical level, he looked great. And really, he kept Paulo on that outside range. And then anytime Paulo would... The one time I saw Paulo get into punching range, Israel grabbed him and locked him up.
Right.
So he was just trying to not punch him. And then he was doing a really good job of going southpaw to orthodox and keeping that range. And he said it in his post-fight interview. He said, I was switching stances. I knew on that open side, because when you have a southpaw to an orthodox fighter, you have a big opening on the back leg side. So if you're a southpaw and I'm orthodox, my orthodox side would be my right leg.
Mine would be my left.
Your back side would be your left leg. And on that side, our chests facing each other where we open, that's, I mean, what, 160 degree angle, 150 degree angle right there. Whereas on the other side of it, that's a very narrow angle. So we kind of can, we can negate.
Kind of cancel out that one side.
Yeah, that whole side.
Try to attack the opening.
Yeah, and so Paulo wasn't pressing the distance, so he was just throwing a couple feints and a couple kicks from that big open side. So Izzy could just move around, was not worried about it at all. But Izzy's taller than him, so if all things considered, we're standing at the edge of the taller person's range. That taller person's going to win on that kicking battle right there. And you saw the way that Izzy was moving left and right laterally, and then opening that stance up, which really never gave Paulo a chance to even get going. Considering what he was doing, he would have to really press and he would have to have eaten one or two kicks and then been firing 3, 4, 5 punches on the inside.
Yes.
And kind of rinse, repeat. All things considered, again, maybe he can angle, maybe he can do different things. But the way that they were fighting, if nothing else changed, he was not going to be able to stand on the outside and win that fight at all. He had to get on the inside against a taller opponent.
Yeah, and he had to use his physical attributes. He had to use that strength and that size, and that never came into play once.
And you wonder why. The whole thing, you're a big, strong, physical guy. Go in there, be big, strong, and physical. Don't be technical against a smaller technical fighter.
Yes.
That is a recipe for disaster. Again, I mean, we're close to Paulo. I know Paulo. He's come and trained. I know his trainers, captain. I know all this stuff. So I think it makes me wonder, what the hell was going on.
Have you talked to anybody from that camp since the fight?
Yeah, a little bit, and not on a technical on a technical thing. Nothing that I would share on an open platform. But yeah, I wonder what's next. What's next. Actually, talking about what's next, Israel was talking about Whitaker and Cannonier, the winner of that possibly fighting one of those two, and that is coming up. Is that on the undercard of Gaethje and Khabib, which is coming up here on the...
Yes, that's the co-main, right?
Yeah, that's the co-main event. Who do you have in that fight?
Man, I've been and still am a huge fan of Whitaker, man. When he was champion before fighting Adesanya, I always thought that he was very underrated, and I always thought that people always overlooked him. And part of that could just be because he's been injured. He's been very injury prone, and so he's been out of the spotlight for a while. And then I think people just forget about him, and they see. They kind of sleep on him a little bit when he has these fights coming up. But dude, I'm a huge fan of Whitaker's, and yeah, I got him winning that fight.
Man, I don't. Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. I think Whitaker is a more technical fighter. Cannonier's durable though. Cannonier really is durable. And you want to see man, I don't know. I guess that would kind of be a toss up. I don't know. I think if Whitaker wins it, I think I think he needs another fight. But the division, who else is left? I was going to say, I think maybe he needs another fight before he gets a rematch.
Yeah.
But that division, there's no dominant runner-up.
Yeah, I would like to see a rematch with Whitaker and Adesanya.
Really?
Yes, because in my opinion, I had Whitaker winning both rounds up until he got dropped. So that first round, I thought that Whitaker was winning the first round. I actually thought that he was getting the better of Adesanya in the striking exchanges, and then he got dropped towards the end of that round. And then you're like, okay, well, obviously, clearly that first round went to Adesanya. Up until that point, though, I had Whitaker winning that whole round. Same thing in round 2. I was actually impressed with how well Whitaker recovered going into the second round after being hurt as badly as he was in the first. He came out, landed a couple good shots against Adesanya, and I had him winning that whole second round up until he ended up getting dropped and finished. So Adesanya had a couple big moments in those fights in round 1 and then in round 2 when he dropped him and then finished him. But before that, I thought Whitaker was winning. And so I would just like to see Whitaker make a few adjustments. If Whitaker doesn't get caught, I think he's got a good shot, or at least a competitive shot, more so than anybody else in the division that I can think of.
What is Whitaker's win streak? He just beat Till, and that was kind of a weird fight, kind of a boring, weird fight. I mean, Till's kind of a strange... Man, it's funny, you see Till, sometimes he will just... He's a horse, and he is just there throwing down.
Looks incredible.
But he's had a couple of those weird matches. It was with Wonder Boy that it was kind of... it was Wonder Boy, right? That was really a weird one. It's kind of like that.
He ended up winning that one, but
but honestly, they both lost. I mean, not like they both lost, but you could have given it to either of them. Nobody won that fight. It was just kind of... it was almost like a
little bit of a toss-up. It just...
The Adesanya-Yoel fight, where they were just kind of not doing stuff.
Anticlimactic.
He
got knocked out. I think before that, he got knocked out by Masvidal, unless that was after the Wonder Boy fight. I don't know, but Till has kind of had a little bit of an up and down.
And then I think, so we've got Cannonier, who's on a 3-fight win streak. I don't know that there's anybody else in that division that is really exciting in terms of like...
I don't know. If we're going to talk in that division, I don't know. If Whitaker wins, I think that he's the guy. If we're going to talk super fights, though, with Adesanya, I want to see him and Jones. These guys have been bad-mouthing each other for, a year, 2 years now? For a while.
And Jones just vacated his light heavyweight title, so he could just kind of... I mean, they could fight at a... whatever weight they want, and it's just a fun fight to watch.
I just want to see that fight stylistically and see how that plays out.
Yeah, I'd be down with that too. And I don't know that Adesanya has fought anybody as tall as him, whereas Jones has fought people as tall as him. But I don't know. I don't know that I feel like Adesanya is too small at 80. I mean, these guys are both 6'4", and Jones is thinking about moving up to heavyweight.
Right.
Does Jones cut that much weight down to 205 to fight a guy, that seems like a hard weight cut for not a belt, for just hanging out and doing it.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be for a belt, but it would be for a fat payday. That would be a huge fight.
Yep.
A huge fight that I think Jones wins. I personally
think Jones wins that as well. I think he's durable enough. I mean, Jones has fought the best of the best of the best. Like that's not a guy that's going to be out tricked or out. He's seen it all. I mean, you could land stuff on him,
right?
But that's not a guy that you're going to go out there and starch because
he just has tricky. More tools. He's very long, so I don't know if Adesanya would be able to get his striking off on Jones the same way because Jones is so long. He's got the wrestling. Jones is a great striker himself as well, so I could see him posing a lot of threats on the feet against Adesanya too. But Jones made a good point. He was talking about Reyes because obviously Reyes just lost, and he compared Reyes to Gustafsson, and he said everybody, the stars can align and anybody can have a great performance on any given night. He goes, and I'm paraphrasing, but to be as consistent as Jones has been night after night against the best of the best is really what separates him from everybody else. And it is true because you do see these guys, Gustafsson, Reyes, who do have these great performances where a lot of people actually thought that both of them beat Jones, but they just haven't been able to keep that going,
put it
past
together.
That
but
fight.
Remember, and I've said this before on numerous occasions on the podcast and just in life, everybody after they lose a title fight loses the next fight.
You have said that for a long time.
Dominic Reyes just lost against a title fight, happened to be in another title fight, lost it.
Yeah.
I'm telling you that is and I'm not like, superstitious per se, but that just, there's a trend. Go back and look at people who have fought for a title and then look at them their next fight. I don't know what it is.
If I had to guess, and this is a total guess, I would say that they are not as motivated coming back as they were for that title fight. I think that when you're fighting for the title, you're putting in you have that championship fight camp, right? You're fighting for the belt. You're more motivated than ever before. And then after that, I think the next fight just doesn't seem to have the same kind of
there's something about
excitement,
it. I don't know if it's excitement or maybe you think I just fought for the title. This person's not the champion, so I should beat them. Maybe it's, something like that. And then they lose and like, oh shit, I better get my stuff together. Like I got to go. But I mean, man, if you look at it, it's a weird trend.
Yeah.
One of these days I'll actually go through and do the numbers on it and take a look.
That would be interesting because it does happen quite a bit.
Happens quite a bit. But let's take a look at some of these upcoming cards. So we've got Fight Island. I'll be there for 2 of them. And I want to see, but the thing though is you've got some really good main events coming up. All right. Yep. We've got some really good main events. I've got the cards here. I'll talk about them in a minute. The thing that bothers me about these Vegas versus Fight Island cards is the Fight Island cards, you're getting a main event, and then you're getting all of the European and the South American and pretty much the rest of the world besides the United States, people fighting each other. And then in the States cards, the ones in Vegas, you get 1 or 2 main events of people flying in or whatever. But then it's all the American fighters fighting each other.
Right.
And not always. You do get some who are, mixing and matching a little bit, but as a whole. And my issue with that is we're seeing guys who should be fighting other top 10 type opponents fighting people we don't know.
Yes.
And then you're seeing these people who you don't know fighting higher level guys, and then people you don't know fighting each other. But there's a lot of them. There's so many people on the roster right now. And I mean, I'm in the know, and half these people, I'm like, man, I don't even know
who these
people are.
Yeah. When I looked at the last card, I don't think I knew anybody on the prelims except for Diego Sanchez.
Yeah. The guy that he fought, Jake Matthews, I looked at his record. He has like 6 wins in the UFC.
Oh, wow.
I was like, what the hell? Like, how the hell do you have this? And I was looking at other fighters on other upcoming cards and things like that. Some of these people I never even heard of, and they've got 3, 4, 5 wins, 6 wins in the UFC. I was like, holy crap. Like, these guys are just prelim fighters on these random Brazil European cards, over the course of like months and years.
I guess if anything, it's good for these people to be fighting some of these bigger names because it kind of puts the spotlight on that. Like, I didn't know who this dude was, but then he fought Diego Sanchez. I know who Diego Sanchez is.
Exactly. Now you know who Jake Matthews is.
Exactly.
All right, so we got a couple coming up. So one on the upcoming card is Holly Holm and Irene Aldana. Who do you have on that? And honestly, the rest of the card, I mean, I'm sure it's going to be a really good card, but I don't know a lot of those names.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to just run through, because I'm going to be gone for a while. I want to run through the big fights over the next few weeks together. So I don't want to spend too much time on any individual
Dissect
card.
the whole card.
Exactly.
I got Holly Holm.
I think I do too, and here's the reason why. And Holly Holm has not been, man, when she first came on, she was finishing people.
Yeah.
She was fighting her ass off. But she got old. She's my age. She's 38. And I know how tired 38 is. I get it.
Is she 38? I didn't realize she was.
But she started kind of turning into a point fighter, and I just haven't been overly impressed, not with her as a whole, but her style. She kind of got into like a mode, and you kind of know what she is doing. Like when she fought Cyborg, left hand, left high kick. That was it. It just again and again and again for a whole fight. And you're like, dude, switch something up, do something different.
Right.
That said, I think Aldana is a bit of a point fighter as well. She's got her last win is a knockout, but she is not like a power physical girl.
And that's the thing. Like when I look at Holly Holm's last few opponents, the women that she's fought, man, she's fighting the top of the top.
Yes.
I mean, she fought Cyborg, and then she fought Jermaine.
Durandamy.
Yes,
yep.
Durandamy. And I actually thought that she won that fight.
Yes, so do I.
And Jermaine also, cheap shot her a couple times. I think 2 late shots after the bell.
Okay, I don't remember.
So if I remember correct, I mean, it was a long time ago, but I remember that wasn't the cleanest fight. So Holly's been in there. I mean, she hasn't looked fantastic. I mean, definitely, I don't think she's done anything close. She hasn't put on a performance anywhere close to the performance that she put on against Ronda Rousey.
Yeah.
But she's also fighting the top of the top.
The best of the best, exactly.
So I think this is a good opponent for her to go out there and kind of just get back at it and get back in the winning column and put a highlight together for herself.
Yeah. I think you're right. I don't think Aldana's going to be physical enough for Holly Holm. I think that's really what it comes down to. So I'm with you on that. Now, the next card, and this is the one I'm going out there for Tracy Cortez. Of course, we have Tracy fighting, but the main event of that, in this, gosh, I am more excited for this, honestly, than I think I might even be for the Gaethje Khabib fight, not name-wise, but just stylistically,
out of curiosity, what's going to happen?
Yes, is we've got Marlon Moraes and Corey Sandhagen. Two strikers. I mean, you've got Moraes, who is just starching people with that left high kick. Put Jimmy Rivera out. Put Aljo out. He rocked Junior Sunsao or Rafaela Sunsao, and then submitted him. He's just been on a tear. And then he lost to Henry Cejudo, who he was on a tear. He was, winning that fight. And of course, Henry went full Henry on him. But then he came back and he beat Aldo as well in a 3-round fight.
Asterisk. Question
Definitely
mark.
an asterisk. I thought Aldo won that fight. And I thought that Moraes gassed hard on that fight. I thought he gassed really hard. Now, this is a 5-round fight. And Corey Sandhagen is a freaking surgeon on the feet.
Yep.
Who do you have?
Sandhagen.
Do you?
Yep.
How?
I think he is going to finish Moraes in rounds 2 or 3. I think that what we've seen the last couple of fights from Moraes is that he's a 1-round fighter. At least he has been a 1-round fighter. In the first round, he comes out strong, looks phenomenal. And then we see him fade hard midway through the second round. We saw that against Henry. We saw that against Aldo. He beat Sterling in the first round. So it's like, so who knows how that fight would have continued to play out had it gone past the first round. And like you said, Sandhagen is just a technician on the feet, man. And so for me, I am excited about that matchup, but I'm pretty confident in my decision.
Okay. I think you're right. I think Sandhagen wins it. I think Sandhagen's got beautiful body work.
Yes.
And I think he is going to attack that body hard and heavy early. And I think you're right. I think rounds 2 or 3, I think he puts
him out.
Marlon away. Yep.
Yeah, I just don't think that Marlon's going to be able to keep up past the first round, man.
Marlon actually doesn't go with loses the title fight. So he actually lost against Henry, but he won his next fight against Aldo. But again, there's an asterisk there.
Right.
So he's one of the few that actually won their fight following a title shot.
So he looked great like 3-4 fights ago, and then just hasn't looked great since.
Well, he doesn't look great like you said, after the middle of that second round, he fades hard.
Yeah.
And then he's got to he's a front runner. He needs to get his lead early and just hold on to it before that goes. And we have we ever seen him in round 4 and 5?
No, not that I can remember. No. And the thing with him is maybe he is so dominant, so dangerous rather in the first round because he puts everything that he's got into that first round. And then he's got nothing left at the end of rounds 2 and then going into round 3.
When Vitor was on, man, he was going to start.
BJ Penn, best first round fighter in the world. You can make it past that first round, your chances of winning just went up by 90%.
All you have to do is not lose in the first 5 minutes, and then you will pretty much guarantee a win after that.
Yeah.
Does BJ have a decision win?
Yes, he... Didn't he beat Kenny Florian by decision? Did he beat him up for 5 rounds? Or did he finish Florian?
I don't know. We'll have to look at that.
Diego Sanchez as well. He dropped Diego Sanchez in like the first 15 seconds of round 1. Like they came out, it was like the first exchange he dropped Diego, which was huge because Diego had never been dropped before.
Yeah.
But then after that, Diego kind of recovered or whatever, and BJ just proceeded to just beat him up. I think the whole fight.
Okay.
So
we're going to have to go back and watch that.
It was when BJ was working with the Marinovich brothers. He looked great, and he was in shape for a few fights, and then he stopped working with them, and then we kind of saw him start gassing.
All right, so after that, we've got another one of our guys, Korean Zombie and Brian Ortega.
Yeah.
Now, of course, we're going to be biased. We're going with Zombie.
Of course.
How do you see that fight playing out?
Yeah, well, huge fan of Zombie. Awesome dude. Yes, I'm very biased. I'm very, very biased. Yes. Now, with that said, I actually do like Ortega too.
I actually do as well. And it's funny because there's a big thing with Ortega and Zombie and Jay Park, who I guess is a rapper. I don't even know this stuff. Do you know who Jay Park is? He's like a big hip hop star in Korea.
In Korea, yeah.
Yeah, and so he's.
I didn't know that until everything happened with like Ortega slapping him.
Yeah, I guess
or
Ortega slaps him. It's this trash talk back and forth, which really makes me sad because I like Ortega. I like him as a fighter.
I think they both respected each other and actually liked each other too before that happened. And then I think once Ortega slapped Zombie's boy, then Zombie was like, all right, you know, that's when the switch was flipped.
I'm curious. I think Zombie wins is similar to how Max won it.
Exactly.
Move in, pepper him. But Zombie tends to throw a lot more heat than Max does. Max kind of volume you, whereas Zombie's going to try and knock your head off. Yep. So I think it's very similar. Zombie's got to watch his neck. We all know that. You know, Ortega's going to try and swing. And Ortega will throw elbows and knees. You know, I mean, that's the thing. I really don't think Ortega's boxing and kickboxing is a threat. I think his elbows and his knees could be a threat, are the bigger threat standing up. Yeah. And I think that my curiosity with Ortega, he has a whole new camp. He just switched camps, switched trainers, switched everything. And I'm curious to just see how. Has he evolved? Has he gone back? Does the new style fit him? Does it not fit him?
Right. Have you heard why he left his old camp?
I don't know. I haven't heard why, but I believe he's got all new trainers. I believe Henner is still there. Gracie will be in his corner. Other than that, they're training at Tiki's place, which is HB Ultimate.
I wonder if it was a training partner issue.
I don't know, but they're over at Tiki's place, and I believe his main training partner is Juan Archuleta. So it's not like he's got 30 guys in there training. So I really don't know what the deal is, but I always find it interesting to see how people react with a new camp.
Yes.
Sometimes it works out well, sometimes it does not work out well.
Because not every camp is for everybody, man. And some people just don't click. And I'm interested, but I think you nailed it. I think the same way that Holloway beat Ortega is how Zombie beats Ortega as well, except Zombie's got the power to put him away. And so I think in those later rounds, when Zombie starts, really piecing him up and landing those big shots, he could actually finish Ortega.
I think you're right. I think, and wouldn't surprise me to see Zombie put him out earlier than that because he's got that power. He's done it. He did it in Moicano.
Yep.
He did it to Frankie. And I mean, Ortega's got a giant melon on him though.
But Zombie can crack. So maybe
I'm not even talking about like fighting for a second. You just look at his skull and you're like, oh my gosh, that thing he looks like a bobblehead from like a stadium,
right,
or something
like those, baseball player
baseball player bobbleheads. So you're like, man, how hard do you have to hit that thing before the lights turn out?
I think that he might be able to absorb some of that, but that's why I said the later rounds. But you're absolutely. I mean, he could put him away. Zombie could put Ortega away, early, but. I don't know if it would be like a one-shot thing, and maybe he lands a big combo, Ortega absorbs the first couple, and then maybe Zombie follows up, and that's what does it.
I could see that. Kind of almost like drops him, wobbles him, follows up on him, versus starching him clean, kind of a TKO. Gets him wobbling, gets him moving a little bit.
With that said, he needs to be careful. If he's going to go in, let's say he drops Ortega, and then he goes in, he better be very confident that he's going to finish Ortega, and that Ortega is badly hurt before he goes in to finish.
And not go like so many people do.
Guard.
So many people do that. They get somebody hurt, and then and then they fall to the ground, and then they dive on them,
and they let the person on the bottom recover. And with Ortega, his jiu-jitsu is too good to be inside of his guard while letting him recover.
Exactly, you don't want to do that. And then last up, and we've talked about this, I think a little bit, honestly, before at the probably our last podcast, what was going on. But see, actually, even before we get to the fight, we've got Khabib, and Justin Gaethje. Other people on this card, we've got Stefan Struve. And he's actually fighting Tai Tuivasa.
Okay, yeah.
We've got Sam Alvey. We've got Rafael Dos Anjos. But they're fighting people who you probably haven't heard of. Rafael Dos Anjos fighting Islam. Islam we've heard of. Islam Makhachev, who's good, but isn't a huge name that you would expect.
But that's fine for Dos Anjos because he hasn't looked too great or dominant. Great.
But then you've got Sam Alvey fighting Da Jung. Then you've got so you've got and this is just what I was talking about with the cards lately. Is you have names who you recognize fighting guys who you're probably not super familiar with. Right. So even though it's probably going to be a good fight, you kind of want those names to fight people who you kind of know.
Who also have names.
Yeah, for nothing more than familiarity. It's kind of like a boxing card. You see Mayweather fighting, Canelo, and you're like, okay, that's a great fight. And then the undercard, and you're like, I have no idea who most of these people are,
right?
Because they're bringing them up, and things like that. And so it's not. The fights are going to be good. You just want a little bit more name value on those. But the pay-per-views lately have been like that. 1 or 2 big fights. We just had a pay-per-view the other day. There was not a lot of huge names on that card. The 2 main events.
Yeah.
And then other than that, it was, you had Diego, who's a name, but he's, Diego's, 46 fights past his prime.
Right. You just know of Diego because he's just been around the game for so long.
He's been around forever, but that's not. And so that's my only gripe with splitting the cards is not, hey, I get it. It's time of COVID. You've got to make do with what you have.
Right.
I get it. I'm not complaining that they're doing this. I just noticed that that's a thing that is occurring because of COVID. So I get it. Now, Gaethje and Khabib. These two, the thing about Nurmagomedov, and I've been saying this for years, I am surprised that people have not figured out the riddle. They haven't figured out the riddle. And the key to beating Khabib, I think, maybe I'm wrong on this, but we've never seen anybody really do it. We saw it with a little bit with Al Iaquinta. Don't fight him on the cage and don't back up. You cannot back up. You've got to meet him in the middle and you've got to fight him out in the open. I would take my chances wrestling him out in the open where he's not a strong wrestler versus on the cage where he's an extremely strong wrestler, one of the best we've ever seen. And I wonder, does Gaethje go out, meet him in the middle and avoid the cage? Or does he try and back up and avoid Khabib like everybody else does and end up backing himself in the cage?
Yeah, well, I think that with Gaethje, if Gaethje were to fight Khabib a year or 2 ago, then I think that he would just go out there and throw everything, including the kitchen sink, and then whatever happens, happens. However, with the way Gaethje fought against Ferguson, we saw an intelligent Gaethje. We actually saw an intelligent Gaethje fight against Donald Cerrone. We start seeing some head movement. We saw an intelligent Gaethje fight Edson Barbosa. We saw the head movement and the what was it, a big right hand that put Barbosa away? He's not just tough anymore. He's fighting intelligently. And I think that he's not going to be reckless, too reckless anyways, against Khabib. I think he knows where Khabib's strengths are, and I'm sure his camp and himself, they're all preparing for that. They know what he's going to try to do. I actually think that this is Khabib's biggest threat, biggest, most dangerous opponent that he's fought. Because I think that, believe it or not, I think Gaethje will be able to kind of cancel out Khabib's wrestling, and I think that if it stays on the feet, he's piecing Khabib up, man.
I think you're right.
So I got Gaethje.
Now the thing is, and this is there's always a balance between this. You get Gaethje wins because he's a wild man. He's a brawler. He's going nuts. And when you start pulling that back too much, it takes away from what made him him. Mm-hmm. And I hope he doesn't do it too much. If he tries to be too technical, Khabib is going to get in and he's going to get him to the fence and he's going to drag him down. I'm with you. I actually think Gaethje wins it, but I think he's got to make sure that he's got to balance that like savagery, and he's got to balance like not going. I wouldn't even say not going just full balls out swinging crazy. I think that actually helps him. He's got to try not to be too technical where he's backing up and inching away and trying to create space, because that's what Khabib wants you to do, is back up and you end up
can't think too much.
Exactly. And what people always think, so they back up. You want space, so you back up, all right? But Khabib is so good at cutting that cage off, you end up backing yourself up right into that freaking cage. He shoots, puts you on the cage, and he's good to go. So Gaethje needs to be out in the open and swing, and he's got to fight his ass off for 25 minutes. He's got Trevor Whitman in his corner. And Whitman, I think, is one of the best in the game. I think he is one of the best game planners there is. I think he's one of the smartest minds that we have in the game. And they also have Usman, who did his camp with Whitman this last time. And so if Usman's up there helping with Khabib, holding Gaethje against the cage, I can't think of a better training partner, than that. You got Drew Dober up there. I think with the training partners and who they have, I think... And then Khabib, I think, did his whole camp in Russia.
Yep. I don't think he's at AKA for this one, just because of COVID.
Yeah. And so does he have the same training partners to emulate... Gaethje.
Yeah.
And I don't know that he does. I think the training partners, the Russia camp, but I've also Khabib is 28-0. I think, what was he when he got to the UFC? 18-0, 19-0?
Something like that. I don't remember off the top of my head.
I think I bet against him 11 times so far. Like every time. I always underestimate him. I really do. And I underestimate him, not because I underestimate him. It's because I think somebody is finally going to fight him differently than everybody else has fought him.
Right.
And they don't. They fight him all the same. And again, it's one thing to, it's Tyson said, everybody has a game plan until they get hit. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to say you're going to fight somebody some way, and then they're reacting and doing things, and then you can't get your game. You know what you're supposed to do, but you can't do it because they're so good at it.
Exactly.
Everybody
they just impose their will.
Exactly. Everybody knew Cal Sanderson was going to low single ankle pick you. He did it. You know, what was he? 146-0, won a gold.
So it's one thing to know about it, it's another thing to stop it.
Exactly.
Totally different.
Yep. Everybody knows what Khabib is doing, and he's like, well, stop me, and I'll adapt. So I do think you're right. I think, and Khabib, his actually, I would say his chin has gotten better, even though that's kind of a myth. Your chin can't actually get better. But I think his striking has got better, so he rolls punches more. He doesn't take them so clean.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think he's been hit, but they're not as clean of shots. So he takes punches better. But can you take a Gaethje punch? Like that's a different animal.
Yeah, it's different. And you know, again, going back to the wrestling side of things, I think Gaethje's never been taken down.
Oh, really?
In an MMA fight.
Really?
Yeah.
I
believe so.
Okay.
So
I'm gonna have to go look at that stat.
Yeah. So you know, that's I'm curious. It's gonna be the same as all of Khabib's other fights, man. It's like when he fought Conor, it's like, well, can Conor stop the takedown, and can Gaethje successfully take Conor down without getting clipped on the way in?
Yeah.
And in this fight, the reason why I feel like it's a little bit, I mean, it is kind of the same thing, but I'm like, man, Gaethje has that wrestling though. Mm-hmm. He's got great takedown defense, and he has great takedown offense that you just don't see a whole lot of because he's putting people away on their, on the feet.
He was a D1 All-American at University of Northern Colorado.
So I'm like, I don't know if Khabib is just going to go out there and out-wrestle him the way that he does everybody else. And so because of that, man, I'm very excited about this fight, probably more so than the other fights that are coming up. But I think that Gaethje gets it done, man.
I think so. I'm curious to see the odds on that.
And I don't think that him thinking is going to be an issue. I don't think he's going to overthink, only because I think that we've seen his patience actually work out in his benefit. I think we've seen him improve because of it. I don't think that he's taken away anything else. I think this has been in addition to his savagery. Now it's more like controlled savagery.
I think you're right. I think he lost a couple times. Who did he lose to? Alvarez and Poirier.
Yes.
And I think he learned from those fights. And I think he's a better he was mean before those fights, and he was tough. And he learned from those fights, and now he's just scary. Now I think he's champion material.
Yes,
I think he's
agree.
champion material now. I think before he was tough, he was dangerous, but now I think he's champion material. And I'm super curious to see how that goes. Fortunately, I won't be there for that. I'll be on my way home. Man, I'll keep you guys updated in Abu Dhabi. Like I said, we'll do some podcasts via Zoom. We'll upload stuff. I'll let you guys know what's going on. Maybe show some pictures or something, kind of update how things are going.
That'll be awesome.
And then, we will see you guys next time. So tune in. Make sure that you guys like us, subscribe, and then we will see you at some point over the next couple weeks from Abu Dhabi. Then we'll get this going back when I'm back in town.
Cool. And like you said, if you could like the podcast and subscribe to it. Also, if you could leave us a rating too, that just helps, helps the podcast grow. It helps the podcast show up and just, basically helps promote us a little bit. Yeah,
exactly. If you like it. And then also feel free to comment if you guys want to see different guests or if you want us to cover a different topic. For the most part, we cover the upcoming fights and stuff that are, kind of talk about past fights, talk about upcoming fights. But there's always a lot of interesting topics on MMA, and we want to hear what you guys want to hear about these different topics and different guests. Keep us posted. We'll see you next time, guys.
See you.